On the morning of November 18th, 2012, 13-year-old Dylan Redwine took a trip to his father's home in Vallecito, Colorado. Thanksgiving was just days away, and to spend the holiday with his father, Mark Redwine, Dylan had flown in the day before from Colorado Springs. He was looking forward to seeing his friends in the area, hoping to make the best of his time there. But this wasn't the trip he expected. Dylan Nicholas Redwine was born on February 6, 1999, in Colorado. From an early age, he was known for his boundless energy, quick wit, and infectious laughter. He grew up surrounded by the scenic beauty of the Colorado mountains, which fostered his love for the outdoors. He had a natural curiosity and an adventurous spirit, always eager to explore new places and learn new things. Beyond his adventurous side, Dylan was deeply loyal to his family and friends. He had an especially close relationship with his mother, Elaine Hall, and his older brother, Corey. His friends often described him as the life of the party, the kid who could crack a joke at the perfect moment and make even the dullest day entertaining. His visit wasn't exactly a happy homecoming. It was a court-ordered trip to see his estranged father, Mark Redwine, following a bitter custody battle. That evening, after settling in, Dylan and Mark made a trip to Walmart. Surveillance footage would later show Dylan walking through the aisles, seemingly in good spirits. He had picked out a few snacks, texting his friends about meeting up the next day. Little did anyone know, this shopping trip would be one of the last moments Dylan was captured on camera.
Police Fire Dispatch. Hi, my name is Elaine Redwine, and my son Dylan Redwine was visiting his dad up in Durango, and his dad texted me a little while ago and said he could not find Dylan.
Okay.
So 13 years old.
Okay, so he's staying with his dad. And what's the dad's name?
Mark.
Mark Redwine. Does he have any idea where he may have gone?
Not according to him, no. And
How is
Law enforcement took the report seriously, given Dylan's age and the unusual circumstances. Officers were dispatched to Mark Redwine's home that evening to conduct a preliminary search. Mark greeted them with indifference, maintaining that Dylan had likely run off and would be back soon. He did not even turn on the porch light for Dylan that night, nor did he make any apparent effort to search for him. Instead, Mark went to bed early, showing little concern as the hours passed, which seemed odd to the officers. Dylan Redwine was officially classified as a missing person. As the following morning began, search teams mobilized. Volunteers, law enforcement, and search and rescue teams spread out across Vallecito Lake and the surrounding wilderness. Helicopters circled above, scanning the dense forest, while dogs trained in scent detection weaved through the brush. But there was nothing. No footprints leading away from the house. No signs of struggle. It was as if Dylan had vanished into thin air. But had he? Flyers with Dylan's face were plastered all over town. Elaine and Corey arrived in Vallecito as quickly as they could, joining the desperate efforts to find Dylan. Elaine pleaded with the public as she begged anyone with information to come forward. The community rallied behind her, their hearts breaking for the mother who had now gone nearly 24 hours without knowing where her child was. Mark, on the other hand, remained distant. He did not join the search efforts that first day. He did not hand out flyers or walk the rugged terrain with the others. His behavior struck many as odd, but for Elaine and Corey, it was infuriating. They didn't understand how a father could seem so unconcerned about his missing son. Mark recounted that he and Dylan had spent the evening together, watching TV and roughhousing before Dylan eventually went to bed. He claimed that the next morning began like any other, a quiet, ordinary start to the day. He said he woke up around 7:30 a.m. and assumed Dylan was still asleep in the living room, where he had set up to sleep on the couch. Mark recalled moving quietly around the house, grabbing a few things, and heading out to run errands in town. He later told that he had expected Dylan to sleep in and that he wasn't particularly concerned when he left the house that morning. Mark returned home a few hours later and was surprised to find the house empty. At first, he assumed Dylan had gone to meet up with friends, something they had discussed the night before. Feeling a bit tired from his errands, Mark claimed that he decided to take a nap around noon, thinking Dylan would return shortly. He said he slept for an hour or two, and upon waking, was surprised to find that Dylan was still not home. As the hours ticked by, and Dylan never returned. He claimed he drove around Vallecito, checking places where Dylan might have gone, even stopping by the homes of a few of Dylan's friends. But no one had seen him. As the investigation continued, phone records revealed that Dylan had been texting with a friend, making plans to meet up the next morning. However, after 9:37 p.m. on November 18th, he stopped responding, and no further activity was recorded from his phone. Authorities worked tirelessly to piece together Dylan's last known movements. Investigators conducted interviews with friends, family, and anyone who had been in contact with Dylan in the days leading up to his visit, trying to establish a clear timeline. They also searched Mark Redwine's home for any evidence that might explain Dylan's sudden disappearance. With few concrete leads, law enforcement widened their search efforts, determined to uncover the truth about what had happened to Dylan.
Whenever you're ready, Julian. I am ready. Okay, so thank you so much for speaking with me on camera, Mark.
You're welcome.
What's it been like?
Well, it's been a tough time for all of us. I know. I know that it's been difficult on me, and I can only imagine how difficult it's been for his mom and his brother and his family over in the Colorado Springs area. And, we're doing everything we can to try to find Dylan, and we want to keep the focus on finding Dylan. And, I've been working with the investigators to make sure that, all the bases are being covered on that end. And, that's pretty much where I'm at with that. I mean, I'm doing everything I know how to do.
I want to get the subject out of the way first. There's a lot of suspicion out there. Even when Elaine went on ABC News,
right?
She was. Can you address that?
Well, I can only imagine being a mother, the frustration of hearing about your son going missing. And, I can only think that has to do with lashing out and trying to find who's accountable for this in this situation. I've been working closely with the investigators to do what needed to be done because, it was last seen at my house. I know there's rumors going around that he's been spotted by people, and, our concern is that, something has happened to the point now where we just want to keep in the public's eye, Dylan's face and keep the focus on Dylan and, don't worry about me and everything's going to be all right on my end. But I know this is only a troubling time for Elaine and my son Corey, and I spoke with him last night. And, I'm surprised that we haven't been able to hook up today because, one of the things that we're trying to do is unite together. And I have my oldest son from the Phoenix area here, and, of course, my brother's here. So we're trying to unite as a family and stay focused on what's important here. And everybody wants to focus on me, but the focus isn't me right now. The focus is finding Dylan, and that's where I'm at.
Why do you think people want to focus on you?
Well, because I think it's just a natural part of the process, and I think because, he was last seen with me, and he was with me the night before, and, I saw him the morning that I left to go run my errands, that, that's the logical place to start. And so it doesn't at all surprise me, that they searched my home yesterday, because quite frankly, I was expecting that to happen a week ago. So, my opinion is we're all a week late in where we're at with this. In that. So really the focus is, what do we need to be doing now to keep searching for Dylan and bring him home.
Do you have anything directly to say to Dylan?
Dylan, my prayers are with you, and I love you very much. He was the light of my life, and he meant everything to me. And I just want him home just like everybody else does. And that's why, you know, we got to keep searching for him, because somebody knows something. We got to find him, and we need to know that he's okay.
Detectives dug deeper into Mark's past and uncovered disturbing allegations. One of the reasons Dylan had been reluctant to visit his father. Just months before his disappearance, it was revealed that Dylan had discovered disturbing photographs on Mark Redwine's computer. The images, which showed Mark engaging in inappropriate and compromising acts, deeply unsettled Dylan. He confided in his older brother, Corey Redwine, expressing his disgust and discomfort over what he had found. Dylan later confronted his father about the photographs, which reportedly led to tension between them. Investigators considered this a crucial detail in the case. As the time dragged on with no sign of Dylan, the Redwine family feud became painfully public. Elaine openly accused Mark of harming Dylan. Mark fired back, claiming he was being unfairly targeted. The tension escalated further when both parents appeared on the Dr. Phil show in an emotional and heated exchange. Elaine pleaded for the truth, while Mark remained defensive, denying any wrongdoing. The national audience watched as the fractured family battled over Dylan's fate. But one thing was undeniable. Mark was the last person to see Dylan alive.
A news alert, the remains of Dylan Redwine found. After 7 months of searching for the missing teenager, his family getting the news they never wanted to hear. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation confirming that remains found during the search last weekend belonged to Dylan. This story still developing tonight. 7 News with team coverage. Reporter Mark Stewart with more on the details of the last 7 months. But we start with 7 News reporter Tack Landrock in Durango tonight with the latest on what the sheriff is calling a homicide investigation.
The sheriff's office would not confirm whether or not they have a suspect in this case. Right now, only saying that they're not naming one. Now, the reason the sheriff went back up to Middle Mountain is because they said they wanted to retrace their footsteps. Take a look at this map right here. You can see where Dylan's father lives. That's right where that A is. Dylan's body was found right here. The sheriff's office tells me basically that they were able to see Dylan's father's house from where the body was found, but it's about an 8 to 10 mile drive up a windy road. Now take a look at some of these pictures that the sheriff's office down here sent us of that 5-day search. They will not say whether or not they found what evidence they found in this case, but will only confirm that Dylan's remains were tested and it is him. Dylan went missing back when he came to Durango back in November. The sheriff's office says they're treating this as a homicide case.
Does it look like he was transported there or he walked there? Do you have enough information from your investigation yet to determine that?
The information that we have indicates there was no reason whatsoever for Dylan to go to Middle Mountain, and we have no indication whatsoever that he did so on his own.
The sheriff's office says that both of the parents were in Durango today, and they are cooperating with this investigation. Reporting live from Durango, Tack Landrock, 7 News.
For 13-year-old Dylan Redwine, that was a message at a prayer vigil tonight for the Colorado teen who vanished in November. Authorities are investigating Dylan's death as a homicide. New at 10, Action 7 News reporter Melissa Colorado is at the vigil in Bayfield, Colorado.
Well, there are nearly 100 supporters here at Dylan Redwine's prayer vigil. These are the same people that went out into the woods and searched for this 13-year-old for several months. Now that Dylan's remains were found, they want answers. Authorities say there are no suspects in the homicide investigation. They also add both of Dylan's parents have been cooperating. I spoke to both Elaine and Mark Redwine. The two are divorced, and there is clear tension between the two. Supporters of Dylan's mom say they believe that Mark had something to do with Dylan's disappearance. Mark Redwine says his priority is to find all of Dylan's remains and give his son a proper burial.
With only a small portion of his remains being located, it's very important that we find the rest of our son so that we can try to get as much of him as we can, because obviously we want to put him to rest and give him a proper burial.
It was very important for us to honor the community and show everybody how much we truly appreciate their thoughts, their prayers, their selfless acts, their selfless acts of hope.
Family and friends of Dylan Redwine got up and they shared their memories of Dylan. They are also writing messages on stones, which will then become part of a garden in memory of Dylan Redwine. Now, many of his friends say they're not ready to take off their Hope for Dylan braces. They tell me they are still praying for answers. We're in Bayfield tonight. I'm Melissa, Colorado, KOAT, Action 7 News.
Dylan's father, Mark Redwine, says he met with investigators on Friday. Redwine says authorities showed him the area north of Vallecito Lake where they found Dylan's remains.
But the horror didn't end there. More remains were found in 2015, this time closer to Mark's cabin. Among them, Dylan's skull. And the injuries to it were unmistakable. Fractures, indicative of blunt force trauma. Dylan hadn't simply gotten lost in the wilderness. He'd been killed. Now, investigators had the evidence they needed. For 5 long years, Elaine and Corey Redwine fought tirelessly for justice, refusing to let Dylan's death fade into obscurity. However, with little concrete evidence, no immediate arrest was made. Despite this, law enforcement and forensic experts continued to piece together the case, analyzing remains, digital evidence, and Mark's erratic behavior. Over the years, the pressure mounted as Elaine and Corey publicly called for justice, appearing in media interviews and demanding answers. Their persistence kept Dylan's case alive, ensuring that authorities did not give up on solving the mystery of his death. A significant breakthrough came when forensic analysis revealed damning evidence linking Mark Redwine to the crime. Investigators found traces of Dylan's blood inside Mark's home, suggesting a violent confrontation had taken place. Additionally, cadaver dogs detected the scent of human remains in multiple areas within Mark's house and vehicle. Compelling testimony from experts indicated that Dylan's injuries were consistent with foul play rather than an accident. Furthermore, Mark's behavior raised red flags: his lack of cooperation with authorities, his hostile responses to inquiries, and disturbing details about his relationship with Dylan suggested deep-seated animosity. Finally, in 2017, after years of compiling evidence and building a strong case, authorities arrested Mark Redwine.
Just 1 day ago, he was arrested in Washington State for the murder of his son. And now Mark Redwine could soon be back in Colorado to face prosecution. Dylan Thomas is live in the newsroom with the latest on this disturbing case. Dylan?
Well, Tom, unless he can post a $1 million cash bond, Mark Redwine will remain behind bars after a grand jury indicted him for second-degree murder and child abuse charges. Right now, the La Plata County Sheriff's Office is working with Washington authorities to extradite him back to Colorado. Once extradition is successful, for the first time since 13-year-old Dylan Redwine went missing back in 2012, his father will face a Colorado judge.
The trial for Mark Redwine began on October 28, 2021. Prosecutors argued that Mark had killed Dylan in a fit of rage, likely after an argument about the disturbing photos. The evidence was damning. Cadaver dogs had picked up the scent of human decomposition in Mark's living room near his couch. Blood traces, small but undeniable, were found in the same area. The bones told their own story. Dylan's skull had 2 distinct fractures, and some of his remains were found in a location so remote that it raised chilling questions. Had Mark deliberately scattered them to conceal his crime? Mark's defense team, however, attempted to spin another story. They suggested Dylan had been attacked by a wild animal or had suffered an accidental fall. But forensic experts dismantled those claims, pointing to the nature of his injuries and the presence of blood inside the home. The jury didn't buy Mark's excuses. In July 2021, Nearly 9 years after Dylan's murder, Mark Redwine was convicted. The courtroom was tense as the guilty verdict was read.
Good afternoon. A judge today gave a Colorado father the maximum sentence for killing his son. Mark Redwine was convicted in July for killing his 13-year-old son Dylan back in 2012. News 13's Annalisa Pardo is here with Dylan's mother's reaction.
Yeah, Jessica, Mark Redwine declined to speak today in court, but Dylan's family did. They were emotional in the courtroom talking about how Redwine hurt Dylan and them, but they say they're pleased with his sentence.
Community needs to be protected from you. You need to be removed from society for a long period of time. I'm going to sentence you to 48 years on both counts with 5 years of parole. They are to be served concurrently.
Mark Redwine with no visible reaction after learning his fate for killing his 13-year-old son Dylan in 2012. In July, he was convicted of second-degree murder and child abuse. Dylan's older brother, Corey Redwine, says he's satisfied with the sentence.
At the end of the day, and how I feel right now, I couldn't be more pleased with the result. His next 48 are his challenge to overcome, and it is my job now, moving forward, to remember Dylan.
Before the sentence, he, Dylan's half-brother, and Dylan's mom spoke.
When I think about what happened that night, it breaks my heart to think about Dylan looking up at his dad knowing he's the killer. He is my killer.
Prosecutors argued Redwine killed Dylan at his Colorado home in a fit of rage after he found photos of Redwine in women's lingerie and eating feces from a diaper. The defense argued Dylan ran away and was eaten by animals. Redwine didn't talk today, but his defense team told the court he is appealing his conviction.
Mr. Redwine loved Dylan with all of his heart. Mr. Redwine is eager for fair and impartial review by a higher court.
Redwine has called the entire trial leading up to his conviction a sham. Today, the La Plata district attorney fired back.
For him to say that this was a sham trial is absurd. He was given every bit of process due to him and then some, and he received a fair trial.
Today is a good day for us. We're all at peace with what has happened. You know, there's a lot that we can't change. So understanding that we can only change in what we do moving forward. So we are all very, humble and proud of the family that we have, and also the community that we live in. So, we're in a good spot, and we've never been tighter as a group than we are today.
Honestly, the last 9 years, just listening to all his lies and his silence. At this point, it was more about, the peace I needed for myself and my family than any anger or resentment I have towards him. He can work that out for the next 48 years.
Even with Mark behind bars, Dylan's absence is a wound that will never heal. His mother, Elaine, has fighting for missing children and advocating for justice in cases like his, and worked with advocacy groups to push for legislative changes to better protect children from dangerous situations involving custodial parents. His brother, Corey, has vowed to make sure Dylan's story is never forgotten